Rain had fallen over Utrecht since dawn. Steady, rhythmic. The kind of rain that painted cobblestone streets darker and stirred up the earthy scent of old canals and wet brick. Inside her narrow canal-side apartment on the Herengracht, Mira sat with her legs tucked beneath a faded wool blanket, half-finished coffee cooling on the windowsill beside her. The flat was quiet, lit only by a warm amber floor lamp and the occasional flicker from passing bike lights outside. It smelled faintly of cinnamon toast and something deeper, vanilla wax melting in a dish burner, always her favorite during rainy evenings. The solitude felt familiar, not empty, not crushing, just settled. A kind of loneliness that didn't claw at the heart, but pressed gently into it, like an old friend who knew when not to speak. Mira stared at her phone lying face down on the coffee table. She hadn't touched it in hours. She'd sworn she wouldn't, but then it buzzed. She reached out without thinking, flipped it over, and the message stared up at her like a ghost. "I'm outside. Open up. Sofie." Her breath hitched, her whole body stilled. 6 months. It had been 6 long, aching months since Sofie had left. No goodbye. No answers. Just a whispered, "I can't do this," followed by silence that stretched across the seasons. And now this. Mira stood slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs harder than the rain against the windows. Her fingers grazed the chain lock on the front door, but she didn't unlatch it yet. She just stood there staring, remembering late-night walks by the Utrecht, kissing on this very doorstep under autumn leaves, stealing bites of Oli Bolin during the winter fair. Sofie's laugh echoing up stairwells, the way her hand fit perfectly into Mira's on lazy Sunday mornings. Then her legs moved on their own. She unhooked the chain. Her hand hovered over the knob. 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 warnings. Still she turned it. Sofie stood there in the rain, soaked to the bone. No umbrella. Her damp curls clung to her cheeks. She wore the same scuffed leather jacket she always did, like a piece of her had never left. Her lips quirked into the smallest, saddest smile. "Mira," she said softly, voice nearly drowned by the rain. Like her name alone could change the past. Mira didn't speak. Her eyes said it all, confusion, fury, longing. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't moved on. Sofie stepped forward. Her wet boots squeaked on the wooden floor as she gently pushed the door closed behind her. And then, in one breathless second, she reached for Mira's face, her touch shaking, and whispered, "Don't stop this time. Please." Mira didn't know what broke first. Her heart, her logic, or the fragile dam of restraint she'd been building for months. She surged forward, fingers fisting in Sofie's jacket, and kissed her. It wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was desperate. Full of 6 months of silence and dreams and unspoken questions. It was the kind of kiss you don't recover from. But when she finally pulled back, breathless, Mira looked at her through narrowed eyes. "Why are you here, Sofie?" Sofie blinked water from her lashes, cheeks flushed. "Because I was a coward," she whispered. "I ran when things got real. I was scared of how much I wanted you. Because wanting you meant tearing down everything I'd built to protect myself." Mira's jaw clenched. Her arms folded instinctively. "You think I wasn't scared? I was terrified. But I stayed. Waited. Believed you'd come back. And you didn't even text. You vanished." Sofie's eyes shimmered. "I know. And I hate myself for it. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. Every woman after you felt like a poor imitation. I'd be out with someone else and suddenly, I'd hear your voice in my head. I'd crave your sarcasm, your fire, your hands." Mira turned away, walking toward the small living room. The rain outside blurred the edges of the window like watercolor. "So what now?" she said over her shoulder. "You just show up with wet hair and nostalgia, and I'm supposed to pretend none of it happened?" "No," Sofie said, following. "I'm not asking for that. I didn't come to be forgiven. I came because I couldn't stay away anymore. I still love you, Mira. I never stopped." The word love rang in the air like a tolling bell. Mira closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she didn't soften. You don't get to walk in here and set everything on fire again just because you're lonely. I'm not lonely, Sofie replied quietly. I'm broken. Without you. Mira looked at her, really looked. And after a long silence, she said in a low voice, "Then prove it." Sofie took a slow breath, nodding. "Let me stay tonight. Not for anything else. Not to fix everything. Just stop. I owe you that." Mira didn't answer. But she didn't let go of the moment either. She turned, leaving the space between them open, her hand still loosely holding Sofie's. She walked toward the living room. That was the answer. The place looked exactly as Sofie remembered. The mismatched cushions, the chipped ceramic lamp with golden light, the vanilla candle burning low on the windowsill. And the photograph, still there. The two of them laughing on a boat in Geethoorn, wind whipping through their hair, arms wrapped around each other. The day that had felt like the start of forever. Sofie stepped inside, leaving her soaked jacket by the door. She followed Mira to the couch, sitting cautiously at the far end. Mira didn't look at her. She curled up and said, "Say what you came to say. No half-truths. No pretty lies." Sofie's voice cracked. "I panicked. That night you talked about moving in together, about meeting your family. I couldn't breathe. I'd never let anyone that close before. Not because of you. Because of what it made me feel. What it made me want. You could have told me," Mira said sharply. "Instead, you disappeared." Sofie's hands twisted in her lap. "I thought if I left it would hurt less. But I was wrong. I've been raised to believe love isn't safe. That it never lasts. My mum left when I was 11. Since then I've just survived. You were the first person who made me want more." Silence followed. Long aching pause. Then Mira stood. Sofie's breath caught. Was this it? But Mira only walked to the tiny kitchen. She poured the last of the coffee into a chipped mug and popped it into the microwave. Then grabbed a second cup and filled it too. She walked back and handed one to Sofie. "Talk is cheap," she said. "But it's late. And you're here. So talk." Sofie's hands shook slightly as she took the cup. That gesture, a mug of lukewarm coffee, felt like a miracle. She took a sip. Bitter. Real. "I've missed you every day," she whispered. Sofie held the warm mug between her palms like it was the only solid thing left in the room. The rain hadn't stopped. It hit the windows harder now, faster, like it was trying to join the conversation. Mira didn't say anything. She sat still on the opposite end of the couch, wrapped in her blanket, her body angled slightly away, but not completely. A subtle, silent permission to stay, but not to come closer. Not yet. "I've missed you every day," Sofie said again, this time with more weight. "Not just the good things. Not just the way you smell after the rain or how you always correct people when they pronounce Utrecht wrong. I missed the fights. The awkward silences. I even missed the way you hog the blankets and act like you didn't." Mira gave a small huff of breath. It wasn't quite a laugh. Sofie looked down at her hands, fingers tightening around the mug. "I told myself I was doing the right thing, you know? Leaving before I ruined everything. Before I ruined you. You left anyway," Mira said flatly. "I know," Sofie swallowed. "But I didn't forget. Not for one day." She shifted slightly, glancing around the room. A new plant sat by the window. A pile of mystery novels on the coffee table. A different rug from the one they used to lie on after lazy Sunday brunches. Time had moved on without her. Her to see. "You've changed a little," she said. Mira turned her head slowly. "How would you know?" Sofie offered a small, tired smile. "The books. Plant. You used to say keeping anything green alive was a lost cause." Mira's eyes flicked to the fern. Her lips twitched. "It's fake." And there it was. The smallest crack in the wall between them. Sofie smiled quietly. The silence between them felt less sharp now, more like a careful truce. Mira sipped her coffee, and for a while, they both just listened to the soft creak of the pipes and the wind outside. "I started therapy," Sofie said suddenly. Mira looked at her, eyebrows rising a little. "After I left," she continued, "I didn't want to, but I needed to. I got tired of being a version of myself that kept hurting people. Especially you." Mira stayed quiet, but she didn't look away. "I talked about us," Sofie added. "About what I did. About how being with you made me feel seen, really seen, for the first time. And how that scared the hell out of me." Mira tilted her head. "And now?" Sofie's gaze didn't waver. "Now I want to be the kind of woman who stays. The kind who doesn't run when things get deep. Who doesn't sabotage love the moment it starts to feel real." That hit Mira harder than she wanted it to. She looked down into her mug like it held answers. She stood abruptly. Sofie's heart leapt into her throat, thinking maybe that was it. Maybe she'd be asked to leave again. But Mira didn't say a word. She just walked toward her bedroom. Sofie sat frozen for a moment, unsure. Then she heard Mira's voice, soft but clear, from the hall. "Well, are you coming, or are you just going to sit there?" Sofie stood carefully. Her boots squeaked once on the wood floor before she stepped out of them and padded softly toward the half-open door. Inside, everything was the same. The same bookshelf cluttered with paperbacks. The same cream-colored duvet. The soft scent of lavender from a nearby oil burner. Mira sat on the edge of the bed, knees drawn up, her fingers fidgeting with the fringe of the blanket. Sofie sat down beside her. "Not too close. Just enough." Mira spoke without looking at her. "Do you think I'm stupid for wanting you back?" Sofie shook her head immediately. "No. I think you're the bravest person I've ever known." Mira finally turned to face her, eyes searching. "Then don't waste this. Don't lie to me. Don't disappear again. If I let you in even a little, you better stay." Sofie didn't answer with words. Instead, she reached out, her fingers gently brushing Mira's. This time Mira didn't pull away. She let their hands find each other, quiet and natural. "I won't run again," Sofie said. "You're the only place that's ever felt like home." There was no dramatic pause. No swelling music. Just stillness, soft and thick like a wool coat in winter. Then Mira leaned in. They kissed, not like they had earlier, fueled by hunger and regret, but slowly, carefully, like relearning something sacred. Like both of them were afraid they might break it if they weren't gentle. When they finally parted, Mira rested her forehead against Sofie's. "We still have a lot to fix." Sofie nodded, her voice nearly a whisper. "We've got tonight. And if you'll let me, a lifetime." Mira lay back against the pillows without speaking. She let the silence settle, let the warmth between them build into something that didn't demand answers right away. Sofie lay beside her, not touching, just close, her hand resting lightly atop Mira's. The kind of quiet they shared wasn't empty. It was full of breath and grief and the tentative bloom of hope. Like two hearts trying to find the same rhythm again. After a while, Mira whispered, "You know what scares me most?" Sofie turned toward her. "What?" "That I'll let myself fall all the way again. And you'll realize you still can't love me the way I need. And I won't survive it a second time." Sofie closed her eyes for a beat. Then she leaned in, kissed Mira's temple and said, "Then I'll spend every day proving I can. I won't ask you to jump. I'll stand beside you until you feel ready to walk." Mira didn't answer. But she didn't move away either. And for tonight that was enough. They lay there listening to the rain. The city outside faded into background noise. There was no plan, no need to fix everything in one breath. Just this room. Just this moment. And the slow beginning of something new. The morning light slipped gently through the linen curtains of Mira's bedroom, painting soft lines across the floorboards and the edge of the bed. For the first time in what felt like months, Mira didn't wake up to the harsh silence of emptiness. She didn't stretch out her hand instinctively and find only cold sheets. Instead, she felt the quiet, rhythmic rise and fall of another body beside her. Sofie's arm draped loosely across Mira's waist, her breath steady and warm. Mira's instinct was to tense, to brace for absence. But when she turned her head, Sofie was still there, eyes just beginning to flutter open, a flicker of sleepy vulnerability on her face. "Good morgen," she murmured. Mira stared at her for a moment before replying, voice rough. "Yeah, it is." Sofie offered a crooked smile, the kind that had once made Mira's stomach flutter for hours afterward. This morning it just made her chest ache. Not with pain. Not entirely. But with the weight of wanting something to last. Sofie sat up slowly, rubbing at her face. "I should probably go grab some stuff from my place. If you still want me to come back later." Mira pulled the blanket tighter around her, leaning against the headboard. "You can leave your toothbrush here," she said, eyes on the wall. "But don't expect a key." Sofie let out a breathy laugh. "Fair enough. I'll take what I can get." They moved through the morning like dancers relearning the steps, out of sync sometimes but trying. Sofie made toast and burned the edges. Mira brewed them strong black coffee and pretended not to notice how Sofie kept stealing glances at her like she still couldn't believe she was allowed to be here. They sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, the same one where they used to plan weekend trips to Haarlem or draw little maps to explore Delft's hidden bookshops. Halfway through breakfast, Sofie reached across the table and took Mira's hand. "I told my sister about us," she said, almost too casually. Mira blinked. "You did. Last week," Sofie nodded. "Didn't tell her your name. Just said I'd messed something up with someone who made me want to be better. She told me that if I didn't fix it, she'd stop speaking to me." Mira raised an eyebrow. "Really? She's dramatic," Sofie grinned. "But she said something that stuck. Don't let your fear be louder than your love." I finally listened. Mira didn't smile right away, but the words lingered. They echoed around the room, around her heart. After Sofie left to get a change of clothes, the apartment felt paused, not empty. Mira curled up on the couch with a book, but her eyes kept drifting to the door, to the faint memory of Sofie's fingers brushing hers over coffee, to her voice, still warm in Mira's ears. Later that evening, the doorbell rang again. Mira opened the door to find Sofie holding an overnight bag and 2 paper cartons of Chinese food. "I didn't know what you felt like eating," she said. "So I went with nostalgia." Mira stepped aside, letting her in with a nod. "You better not have forgotten the Loempia." They ate cross-legged on the floor, the food container spread out across a woven placemat. Mira picked a cheesy Dutch detective series for them to watch, one Sofie used to complain about endlessly. But tonight she didn't protest. She just laughed when Mira did, teased the worst actors, pointed out the fake blood with a grin. For a while they were just 2 people sharing bad TV and fried rice. And Mira caught herself watching Sofie. The way her brow furrowed when she focused. The way she used chopsticks like an expert and always offered the last dumpling, even though she clearly wanted it. The way her laugh cracked open something that had been locked away too long. Eventually, Sofie leaned back on her hands, sighing, not from exhaustion but fullness. From the food. From the comfort. "I forgot what this felt like," she murmured. Mira didn't look at her. "What?" "This," Sofie said, motioning vaguely between them. "You, me, the dumb shows, the comfort. I thought I'd never get this again." Mira's voice was quiet. "You wouldn't have. Not if you hadn't shown up when you did." Sofie's eyes softened. "I almost didn't. I stood outside your door for 10 minutes. Just frozen." "Next time," Mira said. "Just knock." Sofie smiled to herself. "Next time," she repeated like the words tasted good in her mouth. When the episode ended and the credits rolled, neither of them moved to clean up. The air between them had settled into something deeper, quieter. Mira leaned sideways, resting her head on Sofie's shoulder without asking. Felt natural, like gravity, not effort. Sofie kissed the top of her head, soft and slow. "Can I ask you something? Did you love me the whole time I was gone?" Mira didn't answer right away. Then she nodded. "I hated it. But yeah, I did. I tried to turn it off. Dated a bit. Buried myself in work. But it never went away. Just got quieter. Sofie swallowed hard. I don't deserve that kind of love. Mira lifted her head to meet her gaze. Maybe not, she said plainly. But you've got it. What you do with it is up to you. Sofie's eyes glistened. I'm not going anywhere, Mira. Even when it gets hard again. We'll stay. I'll do the work. Mira's voice dropped to a murmur. Good. Because I'm tired of teaching people how to love me. Sofie took her hand, fingers intertwining with care. Then you have me, she said. They cleaned up quietly, moving around each other with muscle memory. Sofie unpacked a few things, her toothbrush, her moisturizer, one of her worn t-shirts, and Mira watched from the doorway, arms folded, hiding a smile. You move fast, she said. Sofie shrugged. Just making up for lost time. That night, they curled up in bed again. No space between them this time. No hesitation. They didn't make love, not yet. What they shared was quieter, deeper. Mira rested her hand over Sofie's chest. Sofie covered it with her own. And in the stillness before sleep, Mira whispered, This time I want everything. Sofie kissed her forehead. This time you get everything. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Mira didn't fall asleep expecting heartbreak. She just let herself feel safe. The days that followed didn't arrive with fireworks or grand declarations. No love songs swelling in the air. Just small moments, quiet, grounded, persistent. Like Mira waking up to the smell of burnt toast again and realizing, with a mix of fondness and exasperation, that Sofie had attempted breakfast again. Like Sofie wrapping Mira's favorite scarf around her neck before running out for groceries, the way Mira always did it. Twice around, ends tucked in. Like sharing a bowl of bitter stamp pot at the dinner table, Mira wrinkling her nose and Sofie laughing, promising to try a better recipe next time. No dramatic gestures, just presence. One evening, Mira came home late from her studio. The sky over Utrecht had already faded to indigo, streetlights flickering on. Her heels dangled from her fingers, her bag slipping off one shoulder. She opened the door expecting silence. Instead, she smelled garlic and butter. Sofie stood in the kitchen in one of Mira's oversized hoodies, stirring something in a pan, candlelight flickering around her. I didn't burn it, she said, holding up the wooden spoon like a trophy. Mira dropped her bag gently and stared at her for a long moment. You look like you belong here, she said softly. Almost like it wasn't meant to be heard. Sofie turned. That's because I do. They ate by the window that night. No TV, no music, just the soft hum of the city outside and the occasional rumble of a tram down the street. Sofie reached for Mira's hand across the table. Can I ask something real? Mira raised an eyebrow. Is there any other kind? Sofie hesitated. Do you trust me again? Even a little? Mira didn't respond immediately. Her fingers traced the rim of her wine glass. I don't trust easily. You know that, she said. I'm learning to trust you again. That's not the same as being there yet. Sofie nodded slowly. I don't want to rush you. I just want to know where I stand. Mira met her gaze. Her expression unreadable but steady. You're inside the door, she said. That's more than most people get. It wasn't everything Sofie had hoped to hear, but it was real. And real was enough. Later that week, Sofie brought home flowers. Not roses. Mira hated roses. Sunflowers. Little lavender. Bright, messy, and mismatched just like them. Mira stared at the bouquet for a moment, caught off guard. What's this for? No reason, Sofie replied. Just because I love you. And because I'm grateful you didn't slam the door in my face. Mira looked at her. Slowly, thoroughly. You keep showing up like this, she murmured. I might actually believe you mean it. I do, Sofie said. I always did. I just didn't know how to carry it back then. Mira stepped forward and kissed her. Not out of impulse. Not out of fear. But because something solid had begun to grow again. Still, not every moment was easy. There were nights when Mira would see Sofie texting and her stomach would tighten. uninvited. Not because she didn't trust her, but because her scars hadn't faded. There were days when Sofie would get quiet on a phone call, and Mira would feel the panic creep in, thinking she was being shut out. But they talked now. And when Mira tensed, Sofie would ask gently, "What just happened in your head?" And Mira, learning slowly, would answer. One night, they sat by the living room window, wrapped in a shared blanket, listening to the rain tap gently against the glass. Mira turned to Sofie and said, "You know what I realized?" Sofie looked over. "What?" "That we're not who we were 6 months ago. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we had to fall apart to figure out how to build something real." Sofie took her hand and squeezed it. "I didn't come back to recreate the past. I came back to create something better." Mira nodded. Her eyes were glistening now. Not from sadness, but from relief. From recognition. "I think we're doing it," she whispered. Sofie leaned in, brushing her lips softly over Mira's. "Then let's keep doing it. Every damn day." And in that moment there were no promises. No dramatic lines. Just presence. Just two women choosing to stay. They built their new rhythm slowly, carefully. Some mornings Sofie woke before Mira, leaving fresh tea on the nightstand, always exactly how she liked it. Half sugar, no milk. Some evenings, Mira read on the couch, her feet tucked under Sofie's legs, occasionally reading aloud some absurd sentence from a novel she didn't take seriously. They'd laugh. They'd pause. They'd feel like home. One Saturday afternoon, Mira returned from errands to find Sofie rearranging the bookshelf. "You're alphabetizing?" Mira asked, amused. "I'm trying," Sofie said, frowning at the pile of Dutch authors with names that refused to stay in order. "But I think these 4 all start with Van, and it's messing with me." Mira chuckled. "You're making it harder than it is." Sofie looked up. "So are we." They stood there in silence. Then Mira walked over and placed a book on the shelf without looking. "It's okay," she said. "Hard things can still be worth it." That night, wrapped in sheets that still smelled faintly of old perfume and lavender, Mira whispered into the dark, "What do you want from me?" "Really?" Sofie didn't hesitate. "I want the ordinary. The quiet breakfast. The long walks on Dutch streets with too much wind. I want to hear you grumble about cyclists ringing their bells too loudly. I want to be there when your hair turns silver and your back starts aching in the morning. I want it all." Mira's breath caught. Not because it was grand, but because it was honest. Because she could picture it. "All right," she said quietly. "Then you stay. Not just for tonight. Not until it's easy. You keep showing up, until this is normal again." "I will," Sofie said. "And if I screw up again, and I probably will, I'll tell you. I won't hide from you this time." "You're already doing better," Mira said with a tired smile. "Just by saying that." The kettle beeped softly in the kitchen. Neither of them moved. Sofie leaned in, pressed a kiss to Mira's cheek. Not to seduce, not to ask, but to affirm. "You're lucky I still love you," Mira whispered. "I know," Sofie said. "But I'm not counting on luck anymore. I'm choosing to earn it. Every damn day." The next morning, the city outside woke slowly. Trams rumbling, bikes clattering over stones, church bells echoing faintly over rooftops. Mira stirred first. Felt Sofie beside her. Real. Steady. And she didn't flinch. She didn't brace. She just breathed. And for once, it didn't feel like survival. Felt like beginning again.